Welcome everyone to InfoSec Live, where we give you, our audience, the chance to learn from and interact with the cybersecurity industry's leadership. Now, for those that haven't tuned in before, my name's Simon Linstead. I'm the founder. Oh, and I've also got music playing on my other iPad. Do excuse me. Now I'm going to hear myself speaking back. Sorry about that. This is what happens when you try to do too many things at once. For those that haven't watched before, I'm technically inept. My name's Simon Linstead. I'm the founder and host of the InfoSec Live community. And today I'm going to be joined by Mark Buckwell, where we're going to discuss how effective architectural thinking can help security architects with secure systems architecture and design. Before we get into this, though, I just want to touch on where all this has come from. And this is me trying to use technology again. So bear with me a second. It's all come from the not-for-profit InfoSec Live community, where we've now got, I believe, over 6,500 members helping each other every single day from the cybersecurity industry with networking sessions, regular training, CV workshops, networking meetups, and leadership events across the UK and US. So if you haven't joined already, it's free. It's a not-for-profit. The QR code is right there. Please do scan it. If you're not brave enough to scan that QR code, which I can understand, there is a link for that in the description for you as well. But whether you join or not, being here and engaging with our content is what really matters. So if you're watching this live, please do like and subscribe and join 11,600, I believe, subscribers. We do try to make these events as interactive as possible. So make sure you drop any questions you may have in the chat. Okay, time for me to stop rambling on and making mistakes with technology. Let's bring Mark on and have a good chat. Here we go. You can tell I'm a bit rusty there, Mark, and I can't see your picture for some reason either.
And
it's just my screen.
It's technology is the virtual background has crashed, and I've disappeared.
I love it, but we can hear you. Your dulcet tones, which is the most
right.
important.
So
thing,
let me do.
I feel
swap to this and swap back, and maybe
look at that. A man of many.
There we go.
There we go. Welcome, Mark.
Right.
Recess. After my disaster of pressing the wrong buttons and having other music playing in the background, it's not the best start, but I can assure you all who are watching, it's going to be a very educational and informative session here. So to start off with, Mark, tell me a bit about yourself and then how you got started in IT and cybersecurity.
Oh, right. So I started out with an interest in computers in secondary school, and that was a long time ago. When we had one Commodore PET between 2,000 pupils. So yeah, and that was the only computer in the school. And then I sort of said, right, that's what I want to do as a job. So I went out and got a Saturday job and bought one of the first few hundred BBC Micros. And that's how I sort of learned about computers and went on to do computer science. And if you're interested, you can still play Cosmic Invaders on the BBC Micro in a browser that I wrote back then. So in 83, something like that. Yeah. Anyway, so
where no, sorry, we have to stop there. How can I play this in a browser, Mark? This is the
so you just search for Cosmic Invaders, BBC Micro, and you'll find a website with all the old games, so you can play it in a web browser.
Love that.
Amazing stuff. You know, Space Invaders and also the real stuff.
Yeah.
So, and then of course I went on and did a computer science degree. And then about 31 years ago, after doing a bit of parallel systems, I joined IBM as an open system specialist. And my first project was with security. So, and that's where I started my sort of career in security. and then did all sorts of roles. I've looked after security practice. We set up one in IBM. I've been security manager, security architects. You name it. I've done everything except SOC really. But really, my background has been designing security solutions. And that's what we're going to talk about today.
Before we move on to that, then, so 31 years, I think you said you've been at IBM, and you were in the security part of that virtually from the start. Have we got time to cover off how much that's changed since then, or can you encapsulate that in a
Yeah.
few sentences, Mark?
Well, when we started out, there was no security practice. There was two or three people doing a bit of security, um, and within about so I joined in 1993, and then I did some security work, and then 1997 we set up the practice in the UK, and today there are hundreds of people, and in fact, I think there's something like 8,000 between IBM security software and services globally in IBM. So it's quite a
Oh
big
wow!
organization. So, and
Wow.
then it was tens of people globally. So, yeah.
And do you see that changing with automation and everything that's going on in the world at the moment? I mean, we've seen security budgets increase year on year, and I suppose the definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect different results. And it does seem a little bit like that since I've joined the industry, that's what we've been doing. Do you think that will continue, or is it going to change?
I think the roles will change because AI will support the way that people do stuff. So it'll be the same roles, but
Yeah.
you'll have the support, and things will be faster in terms of design. You might use AI, but as I say, um, it AI, you have to be very careful because it can give you all sorts of hallucinations. And I was talking to my son earlier today, and it looks like somebody may have used AI on something, but it's sort of gave some results from 2023, but it gave the reference for 2022, which didn't make
Wow.
sense, and
Right.
totally gave so it's mixing things up. So
I was reading something the other day that it also tells you what you want to hear sometimes. So as much as it hallucinates, sometimes it errs on the side of I think this is what you want me to say rather than what actually should be said.
well, yeah, and if you tell it it's wrong, then it'll correct itself and
Yeah.
then tell you something different.
it's it's scary.
Yeah.
Okay, look, we're going to discuss security architecture today. For me and our viewers, some of them probably, could you start by explaining the difference between design, architecture, and engineering, please?
Yeah, it's one of those terminology that gets mixed up, and I see jobs advertised for lead security or chief security architect, and when you look at it, the description is for engineering. So what's the difference between those three terms? So I guess design is really a process for developing a solution. And you go through the process of gathering requirements and making decisions about how that solution should be put together. Um, and if you're in the industry, you've probably heard about design thinking and other consulting processes that will help you gather requirements, and continues with the design of an architecture which is then implemented or engineered. So, and that's where when you heard the term software engineer, that's the implementation,
Okay.
and it's where you do your coding and scripting and configuration for the system.
And I suppose that makes sense when you think of the term sales engineer as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, it's more getting into the hands-on.
Yeah.
And so, yes, if you've got a sales engineer, they're probably hands-on and they probably do, will get their hands dirty. Whereas the architect bit goes between the requirements, and the engineering. Um, and the architecture often sort of is a single rough diagram on a page, whereas you're often dealing with systems that are one system that I was dealing with was processed 7 trillion a day in terms of transactions. So you're dealing with systems that are resilient, um, that deal with critical processes, and therefore those designs are quite big, and you want to have a systematic way of thinking about security, and so you make that architecture through architectural decisions, and that's the architectural thinking process.
Okay, well, you mentioned architectural decisions. Excuse my ignorance, but can you actually expand on what that is? Yeah, before you do that, I think your mic's going up and down in volume. I'm not sure why. I mean, it's
Uh,
listenable, but if you could remedy
right.
it.
Maybe I'll
Oh,
just go nearer.
yeah,
Is that any
cool.
better?
Yeah,
Uh, yeah. Maybe the gates are cutting out or something. So and when you put together a solution, you're making decisions. So um, a design decision is something quite simple. Um, and if I want to change the security notice on a web page, it has a low cost of change. I can go and do that very simply by just changing the text on the security notice.
yeah,
However, if I want to change from security as a service, so I want to go and get some sort of appliance and I want to run it as a service, and I just decide I want to run it myself as my own appliance, the cost of change is high. I need to think about, well, who's going to manage it, who's um, and all the other things that go around the system. So um, that is an architectural decision. You're thinking about something that has a high cost of change. And an architectural decision normally requires lots of discussion, and you'll require lots of architects, lots of project managers, and other things. And you normally document that through some sort of agreement, and that leaves a record for those who've made the decision, and so ongoing in terms of development, and for those who manage the system ongoing. So it's a quite a significant decision that you're making, and that's the difference between a design decision, which is simple, and an architectural decision which has a high cost of change.
that makes absolute sense. Thank you very much for clarifying that. We keep hearing that secure by design is important. How does that fit into this?
Yeah, it's like the industry, we get buzzwords.
Yeah,
um, and secure by design, is being used a lot and promoted. And really, it's a guiding principle that says a solution should be designed to be secure from the start. All the processes should um, include that thinking, but there's no real standard definition in terms of what that means in terms of scope and scale of activities. So um, it normally, you'll see words saying it includes some sort of threat modeling and some secure coding techniques. Um, but if I go to CISA in the US, they're focusing on securing products outside the security community,
yeah.
and that's their focus. But if I go to the UK, the Cabinet Office and NCSC have been focusing on a broader view, starting with the requirements, going through design, development, and operations. So they have a much wider view. So um, and that the work that they've been doing is being very useful because it provides a much broader view in terms of development life cycle.
Do
But
you do you think we'll see any change there with the recent change of government? Are the priorities still the
I,
same? Is it still at the top of their agenda?
I think it'll still be there,
Yeah,
and it needs to be there.
yeah,
And those sorts of activities, I guess, in public sector continue. They're sort of a guiding approach to the way they should be implementing their projects. Um, but even with the work that they've been doing, there's one line that says in the checklist that says design and architecture, and this is really the one area that needs more guidance, and that's what the bit that I've been doing is to expand that out and define what that means. So that's where I've been focusing.
okay, that makes absolute sense. Just to bring up another buzzword, we'll play buzzword bingo today. It's like being back at RSA. Doesn't zero trust architecture provide the answer to integrating security into the design of a system, or have I got that completely wrong?
It's
I
it's
wouldn't
a
be surprised if I had, by the way.
well, it's a good principle to follow. It's one of those techniques that is useful in terms of the industry, and as you said, going to RSA, every product vendor will have and say they support zero trust, but don't tell you that they support a little bit of it.
Yeah.
So zero trust is important, but it's not the only thing. And so we tend to use a set of techniques, and those techniques seem to be individually thought about. So, and what we try to do is they're not integrated together. So we've got zero trust, we've got secure by design, we've got compliance, and a lot of time we consider that as those as individual techniques. And so what we've been trying to do is to try to bring those together, and we focus on data centric thinking, protection of that data in transit. We Too many discussions start with, well, we need a firewall. So they need to get back to, well, what's the requirement, not what's the product, and how do we fit it into the solution. So um, and so what we're trying to do is to go and integrate secure by designs, zero trust, compliance, and data-centric thinking all into one method. And that allows us to go and think about a systematic way of architecting systems.
Okay. That makes a bit more sense to me, I think. I mean, zero trust is bandied around a lot in the industry as the solution to everything, isn't it? So it's nice to have that in a bit more of a wider context. Can you tell us a bit more about how that method was developed, or how you developed that method?
Yeah, so we started developing it uh, as a technique really 25 years ago, so a long time ago. And what we did was we put together a team, um, or training for some security specialists, and those security specialists um, were, I guess, were needed to quickly get an idea about how to integrate security into a solution. We were going through the era of e-business systems and the internet really starting up, and so to do that, we needed those specialists um, to have a systematic way of thinking about it. So we started developing a structure at that point, a method. And then about 5 or 6 years ago, we restarted that. And what we wanted to do is develop a method where the techniques deliver an outcome, so an artifact, and there is a standard way of following that sequence of activities. That goes through requirements, architecture, and operations of that solution development. The techniques, I guess, have a today don't have a standard format. They don't have a standard technique. So if you
Right.
try to communicate between different, I get teams, they didn't have a standard way of doing it, and so we're trying to go and create something that has a standard communication method. So we started that actually for University of Warwick about 6 years ago, and developed an MSc module for them. And that's gone on, and we've developed also the module for the University of Surrey and internally within IBM. So, and that's been used to go and teach how to think about security architecture.
Okay. There's lots of different opinions on the best methods to teach people. Um, People all learn in different ways. What have you found? What's the best approach for you for teaching this method?
Um, and I guess businesses are trying to go and reduce the cost, and they'll send you on a click through a bunch of videos and do a few quizzes. But if we're not teaching facts, we're teaching techniques. And so what we try to do is then develop a course where you actually go through thinking about the development of those artifacts, um, using a case study. So you get a case study for the teaching, you get a case study for some exercises, which you develop in teams, and then you get a final presentation at the end where you get some feedback as well. And for Surrey, we also do an individual written assignment as well, so they get another iteration of that thinking. So the learners have effectively 3 case studies: one during teaching, a second during exercises, and a third during individual assignment. So that iteration of that thinking enables people who attend the course to go and be immediately productive, because they've already been through that thinking process,
Yeah.
rather than just listing out a list of facts,
And
which
then
is
and then it
what's
becomes more relatable to them for their work, right?
yeah, yeah. And we try to use a case study that's is more real life. It's not just a silly little case study. They have to think through the problems as well. So
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Excitingly, I also understand that these courses may have led to a book being written. Mark, is this correct?
and out of my hand,
Here we go.
as of
Yeah.
yesterday, I have a book in my hand. It's the first one. Um, and so we spent the past year developing a book so that instead of you spending thousands on a course, you've got a book.
Love that.
So, and you can go and there's a link there to go and details on that book. So the idea is that, yes, I can't go and train everybody in the world, but you've got a book there to start with, and if you want to go and know more about it, then you can always come back to me on that.
And is the book is available solely through that link, or can people buy it anywhere else?
They can buy it anywhere. So that's just the companion website. There are links
Okay.
elsewhere, and of course, if you don't want to buy from Amazon, then there are links to independent booksellers,
Oh,
and
brilliant.
so that can have that delivered to your local bookshop, and they're cheaper as well.
I love that. What, than Amazon? I always
Yeah.
assume that everything you're flicking in and out again, Mark. I'm not sure why your screen's flickering a little bit. I'm not sure why. I always assume that I'm going to get the best deal on Amazon, but that's clearly not true, is it?
Yeah.
Not that we're going to stand
It's
here and
clear that
start moaning about Amazon publicly.
oh well, support your local bookseller. But it looks like I'm going to have to go and buy that MacBook Pro M3, aren't I?
It does, maybe. Yeah, it could be it could be that. What we'll do once you've got it, we'll have you on again and see if that's made any difference.
Yeah.
Excited about the book. Any Kindle version out there for an
As a
audio
Kindle
book for
version?
there is. What about for people like me who wear different contact lenses to read and do long distance? Have we got an audio book yet, Mark?
No, because it's rather difficult because there's a lot of diagrams in it.
Okay.
So yeah, I haven't done, and nobody's asked me for an audiobook. But I
Well,
think what will happen
I just
is,
did.
yeah, I think O'Reilly, what they do is on their online service, which is really good. Now I'm telling you about O'Reilly now, but O'Reilly do an online service where you get online books, and you can download them as well. But what they also do is they do a load of videos as well. So they'll ask authors to go and do videos about certain topics and so on,
Oh wow,
which is just a subscription service. So if you're a avid book buyer and you want
I
to
am.
save money, then you can buy a subscription service. Is
I've
another way
just
of
I've
doing
just gone back to my Kindle, so my eyesight's gone downhill quite a lot over the last 15 years, and
it.
I moved away
I
from
mean,
my Kindle because it got to the point where I was getting repetitive strain injury from turning the page so often because the font was so big, so I had
yeah,
so few words on the page that I went to audiobooks. And whilst I've loved audiobooks, you really do. Some books are great, but you really do miss your own interpretation and your own intonations that you normally do when you're not having it read to you, when you're reading in
yeah,
your head. So I've gone back to Kindle and downloaded a few books. I'm reading one on the lean methodology for businesses at the
yeah.
moment, which is quite interesting. Anyway, I'm digressing. So Kindle, yes. Audiobook, no. Just increase the font if you've got bad eyesight. It's so it's been a long journey then over the past 25 years. What's next? You've written a book. What's coming next, Mark?
What's next? So I guess I retired 6 weeks ago. Um,
Congratulations.
and yeah, so that's everybody on the call has to aspire to that. And what it allows me to do is to continue sharing the practices, but actually focus on it. So um, if I can then improve the maturity of architectural thinking in the industry, then great. So I'm not looking to um, get lots of money. You won't be make a lot of money out of £2 a book or something.
Got to
So
sell a lot of books, Mark.
you got to sell a lot of books to make any money. In fact, you'll never make your money back on a book. So I'm still teaching at the University of Surrey, some MSc students, and I'll get another module this year. I'm hoping some additional universities might be interested in taking on the course. So that's 2 using the book at the moment. and any
Which
organisations
is
that
the other one? So Surrey and
University of Warwick.
Warwick. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, both excellent universities in the UK. And if any organisations are interested in adopting it or developing it some more, or getting some education, then they can come and contact me.
And is there anyone in particular, organisation wise, that stands out? I'm not asking you to name company names here, but company types that would really benefit from this with regards to how their setup is.
I think it's particularly consulting practices or larger organizations that really should have a common method. So, a small organization will gain from it, but the benefit of a larger organization is that they can produce security patterns that can be reused. If the documentation uses the same thinking, the same format, and so on, it means that they can make use of that, and I guess accelerate their development. So that's where it's going to be really benefit those sorts of
Excellent.
organizations.
I've already thought of a couple of people who I'm going to put you in touch with. Probably won't be until I get back from holiday now in a week or so's time, but I've
Yeah,
made a couple of notes down here. There's 4 or 5 people I think who could maybe help you, and you could help them a little bit. So I'll definitely
yeah.
put you in touch for that. We've got one question through from Prashant. I think he's jumped out because he couldn't cope with the audio, but he
I
can
don't know what.
watch it on the replay, and I'll put a
Yeah,
note in
I
the
don't know
description
what
for
to.
him.
Uh,
When designing security tooling, would you consider a POC, proof of concept, I'll take it that as part of the planning in order to determine whether your thought process is on track?
yeah, and it's an interesting question because he didn't mention MVP. So,
Ah,
so a POC is something you will test an aspect of it, but you won't really look at the non-functional requirements. So you won't look at the performance and scalability and other things. You're just testing the function. So yes, it's useful, but really what you want to go and do with any security products is really test the other non-functional requirements. So you might find that a product doesn't scale, or it's you can't, and so on. So you want to go and build something that is really a minimum viable product, and then that can go straight into production. That offers you also a shorter um, path to going live as well. But be very wary about the MVP that's really a POC, and that's something I talk about is in the book, where yes, they go live, and of course they haven't really thought about scalability, and we won't mention the scalability on X of a certain video the other day. I don't think I think he had a live POC rather than MVP with
do you think that's what it was? It wasn't a cyber
yeah.
attack then? No.
Yeah, no, I don't think. I don't think he did his MVP very well. I think that was his MVP.
And do you see that a lot in the security industry?
Yeah, and
Because, well, I mean, just to sort of frame that and give a bit more context around it. I mean, I'm not a security expert. I've only been in the industry for just over 3 years now, but I have been involved in business for a very, very long time. And even over the past few years, I've seen companies come and go to the market who have convinced themselves they've got the product that will kind of solve everyone's problems without really finding out whether that's the case, I feel.
yeah, there's the products that solve the functionality, but they haven't thought about how to manage it,
Correct.
or it doesn't scale. And really, it is you get a POC that's described as a full production product,
Yeah,
and and often these startups are like that, and that can work for some organizations where you're ready to scale, you're ready to
yeah,
go, and but you may have to re-architect the whole product. So really what you want is an MVP type product rather than a POC, because what's your next steps to go and scale up that product, even if you haven't tested it fully. You need to
absolutely.
think about these things.
That's a great point. Thank you. We're pretty much out of time. So before I wrap things up and go off for my lasagna and chips, I think I've got this evening, if anyone's interested, how can
Right.
people get in touch with you, Mark?
Yeah, on the website, obviously there's a link to my LinkedIn profile, so just follow me or contact me via that. I think that's the easiest way.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm in the InfoSec Live community as
Well, I
well,
appreciate that.
so you can always contact me through that as well.
That's such the right answer. Thank you, Mark. I really appreciate
That should have been the first answer,
it.
shouldn't it?
Should have been. I should have probably prompted you for that, but I didn't. But no,
And
thank you very, very much. I'll also do. Feel free as well to promote the book and what you're doing in the community. I'll drop some links in there later. I'll also do a little bit on LinkedIn for you. But I look forward to introducing you to some people who I think it'll be mutually beneficial for you to get together. And if anyone's out there watching this, please do reach out to Mark. Order the book, Amazon, anywhere you like, or if you actually care, independent booksellers as well. I mean, I've been a voracious or an avid reader, depending on what terminology you want to use, and I miss the physical books because I just do so much audiobooks now. I've started to get a little bit of a collection here. Every conference I go to, I decide that I'm going to buy, some sort of
you don't
book.
get through it, yeah.
Do you know, how many of these have I picked up and read yet? The honest answer is none, but I will get round to them at some point. I'll take one on holiday with me next week.
Podcasts are great as well. So, and audiobooks, I do enjoy that when I'm painting.
Yeah, when you're painting, but not as good as a traditional book. Mark, thank you so much for taking the time to come on. It is very much appreciated. Everyone for tuning in again, thank you so much. I'm away for a week from tomorrow, so we'll be back in the studio in about 10 days' time. In the meantime, have a great rest of the week. Hug your loved ones, tell your family you love them, and I'll see you in 10 days' time. Take care.
Thanks, Simon.
Cheers, Mark.